I still remember the night everything inside me changed. The night I realized a mother's heart can shatter and still somehow keep beating. My name is Evelyn Ward. And this is the story I carried alone for so long that silence became heavier than truth. I'm 58 years old. I'm a seamstress, a mother, a widow. And I never imagined that the person who would break me the deepest would be the same daughter I raised with both hands and every piece of my soul. It happened at my daughter Ariana's wedding reception. A night meant for joy. A night I had dreamed about since she was a little girl, twirling around my sewing shop, pretending to be a bride with scraps of lace around her shoulders. I used to hold her hands and say, "One day, my love, I'll sew your real wedding dress." But life doesn't always let us keep our promises. And sometimes the people we love outgrow us so fast, they leave us standing in the past. Ariana married into the Elwood family, a rich, polished, cold family from the north side of Atlanta. And the moment I stepped into that banquet hall, the moment those crystal chandeliers glittered over my simple navy dress, I felt it, the sharp divide between their world and mine. But nothing prepared me for what happened. Nothing. I was sitting quietly at the reception table when Marilyn Elwood, the mother of the groom, my daughter's new mother-in-law, walked toward me with a calmness that felt rehearsed. Her champagne-colored gown shimmered under the lights, and her smile was the kind only rich women wear, the kind that never reaches the eyes. Before I could stand, before I could even speak, her hand tightened around a bowl, piping hot seafood bisque, and she threw it straight into my face. The pain was instant. A fiery sting spread across my cheek and down my neck. The broth clung to my skin, soaking my dress, burning through the thin fabric like acid. Gasps filled the hall. Chairs scraped backward. Someone dropped a glass. But Marilyn, she didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She simply leaned closer, lifted her chin, and said the words that will echo in my bones until the day I die. "That is exactly what you deserve." I froze. My whole world froze. I could hardly feel the pain anymore. Only humiliation. Only disbelief. Only a hollow ache spreading through my chest. But what hurt me more wasn't the soup. It wasn't Marilyn's smirk. It wasn't the wealthy guests looking away, pretending they hadn't just witnessed a grown woman burn another. It was Ariana. My daughter. My only child. The girl I raised alone after her father, Marcus, passed away when she was barely 5 years old. The girl who used to cling to my skirt while I sewed for long hours. The girl who used to say, "Mommy, you're my hero." She was sitting at the head table with her new husband, Trevor Elwood. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. But when she finally spoke, she broke something in me I didn't know could break. "She's right, Mom." Her voice didn't tremble. It didn't plead. Didn't ask why. It was firm. Cold. Final. In that moment I felt the floor tilt beneath my feet, as if the entire world suddenly decided it didn't want me standing anymore. But I didn't collapse. I didn't scream. I didn't beg my daughter to look at me, to really look at me. I did what I've done every time life tried to knock me down. I stayed upright. I took the linen napkin from my lap, wiped the soup from my burning skin, and pushed my chair back with dignity I didn't know I still had. I walked past Marilyn, past Trevor, past Ariana, past all the eyes that refused to meet mine. And when I reached the double doors, I stopped. I took out my phone, and I dialed a number I had saved weeks earlier. When the line connected, I said only 3 words. "It is time." Then I hung up, pushed open the door, and walked into the cold air outside. No one followed me. No one asked if I was okay. And maybe that was my answer. Maybe no one cared. I drove home through the dark streets of Atlanta, my dress soaked, my skin stinging, my heart shattered into pieces too small to gather. As I pulled into the parking lot of my small apartment in the West End, my home, my sanctuary, I whispered the question that had been spiraling in my head since the soup touched my skin. How did I get here? When did my daughter stop seeing me as her mother? When did her love shift into something distant, something embarrassed, something that could be tossed aside the moment a richer family offered her a new life? I walked into my apartment and stood in the middle of my sewing shop, the little room beneath my living space where I had stitched my entire life together. Threads, fabrics, needles, patterns, memories, every corner tied to Ariana somehow. Every dress I had sewn to pay her school fees. Every bridal hem I had fixed to cover the rent. Every handmade gown I created while telling myself I was giving her a future better than mine. I brewed coffee in my old stoneware mug, the one Marcus gave me on our first anniversary. The one Ariana painted little flowers on when she was 6. The one that had been with me through grief, through joy, through exhaustion, through every lonely night after I became a widow. I held it in both hands as if it were the only warm thing left in my life. And I asked again, how did I get here? To understand that night, to understand why I made that phone call, you need to know everything. The beginning, the changes, the slow distance that grew like a crack in a wall, spreading inch by inch until the entire foundation collapsed. 3 years ago, things were different. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I lived quietly. I worked honestly. I survived the grief of losing Marcus, the love of my life, by pouring my soul into my sewing. When Ariana left for college, I thought I had succeeded. I thought I had raised a daughter who understood kindness, humility, empathy. But the day she met Trevor Elwood, everything shifted. I still remember the first time she mentioned him. Her voice glowed through the phone. "Mom, he's amazing. He's from a good family. Successful. Confident. He knows what he wants." I remember smiling. I remember telling myself to be happy for her. But something in her tone sounded different. Like she was measuring herself through him. Like his world suddenly mattered more than the one she came from. The first time Trevor and I met, he was polite but distant. The kind of young man raised to believe the world was handed to him in polished silver. And the first time Ariana introduced me to Marilyn, the air changed. Marilyn Elwood. A woman who never worked a day in her life, yet behaved as if her hands shaped the world. Her eyes scanned me slowly, like she was appraising a piece of furniture she didn't think belonged in her house. Her voice smooth, rehearsed, dripping with false elegance. "Oh, you're Ariana's mother. How lovely. Lovely. The kind of lovely one uses for chipped teacups or thrift store decor." I knew right then I was going to be a problem for her. A seamstress from the West End didn't fit the Elwood image. I didn't come wrapped in silk or pearls. I came with callous fingers and worn shoes and years of stitching my life back together after losing Marcus. Marilyn didn't like that. Not at all. And Ariana, she started to shine differently. Something in her changed from the moment she stepped into the Elwood world. She laughed differently. She spoke differently. She started dressing like Marilyn, talking like Marilyn, thinking like Marilyn. Slowly, painfully, she began to drift. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became rare. She stopped telling me things. Or maybe she just stopped thinking I needed to know. I watched my daughter becoming someone else. Someone polished. Someone distant. Someone who didn't look at me the same way anymore. And then came the first dinner at the Elwood house. That night, everything that was beginning to crack broke a little more. Trevor's father, Reginald, barely acknowledged me. Trevor barely talked. But Marilyn, she spoke enough for everyone. She talked about vacations, expensive clubs, charity galas, wedding plans, which she had already begun organizing without Ariana saying a word. And every time I opened my mouth, every time I tried to join the conversation, Marilyn flattened me with a smile that said, "Stay in your place." Ariana didn't defend me. Not once. I went home that night with a knot so tight in my stomach I couldn't eat for 2 days. But the worst parts, the betrayals, the truth behind Marilyn's hatred, all of that came later. And it came like a knife. Tonight, I want to start from where things began slipping through my fingers. Because that's how these stories truly start. Not with a dramatic moment, but with a quiet ache that grows louder every day until it finally screams. And if you're listening to me right now, wherever you are, tell me something. Have you ever watched someone you love slowly walk away from you, step by step, without even realizing their footsteps were crushing you? If you have, then maybe you'll understand the choices I made later. Because the phone call I made tonight? It wasn't revenge. It was survival. A mother's survival. And this is only the beginning. The morning after the wedding, I found myself standing in front of the mirror in my sewing shop, tracing the faint red burn that still lingered along my cheek. The sting had faded, but the humiliation that was carved deep, like someone had stitched shame into my skin with a hot needle. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought the grief of losing my daughter emotionally, maybe permanently, would tear open something inside me. But instead I felt nothing. A strange steady hollow. Like my heart had finally stopped trying to understand. I sat behind my sewing table. The same old wooden one Marcus and I bought at a thrift store when we first started our little home business. I used to sew him shirts here. I used to sew Ariana's school uniforms here. This table held more memories than I could count. And now it held the broken pieces of last night. My phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. "You did the right thing calling me. I'll handle the rest. Ari." Richard Elwood. The man Marilyn feared more than anyone. The man she could never fully control. The man who watched the Elwood empire from a distance, silent but sharp, like a hawk waiting to swoop. I closed the message and set the phone down. This wasn't the time to think about consequences. This wasn't the time to question what would happen next. I was still trying to breathe, trying to let the quiet settle around me. Hours passed. The shop stayed empty. No customers that day. Maybe God knew I needed silence. But late in the afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the dusty light turned golden in my windows, I heard the door open. Footsteps. Light ones. When I turned, Ariana was standing there. Her wedding dress was gone. She wore jeans and a sweater. No makeup. Her hair tied back the way she used to in high school. For a moment she looked like my daughter again. The girl who used to carry her textbooks into the shop after school and sit on the floor doing homework beside me. But then she spoke. "Mom, we need to talk." The softness in her voice didn't comfort me. It scared me. Because softness from Ariana usually meant someone else had prepared her lines. And I already knew who. I gestured to the small chair near my sewing table. She sat, but the distance between us felt like miles. I folded fabric slowly, letting the rhythm calm my shaking hands. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "Talk." She took a breath. Her fingers twisted together in her lap. "Mom, you embarrassed Marilyn last night." I froze mid-fold. Embarrassed? Marilyn burned me. Marilyn assaulted me. And somehow, I embarrassed her? I turned slowly, making sure my voice stayed calm. "Ariana." She threw boiling soup in my face. Ariana dropped her gaze. She didn't mean to. My chest tightened. "You saw what happened." "Yes," she whispered. "But you provoked her." My breath caught. Provoked her? I had barely spoken 5 words to that woman at the reception. "How?" I asked. "Did I provoke her, Ariana? Tell me. I want to understand." She didn't answer. Instead, she swallowed hard and looked around the shop, the threads, the fabrics, the worn shelves. Her eyes didn't hold warmth. They held something closer to embarrassment. And I understood. It wasn't what I did. It was who I was. A seamstress from the wrong side of the city. Not polished enough. Not elegant enough. Not rich enough. Not Elwood enough. Ariana whispered. "Mom, Marilyn thinks you're difficult." "Difficult," I repeated faintly. "She says you judge her. She feels like you don't respect her." I stared at my daughter. Really looked at her. And I realized something painful, something sharp. This wasn't Ariana's opinion. This was Marilyn's voice slipping through Ariana's mouth. "She feels I don't respect her?" I murmured. "The woman who humiliated me in front of 300 people? The woman who insulted my dress, my work, my life since the day she met me." Ariana flinched. She didn't deny it. She didn't defend me. She didn't say, "Mom, I know you're right." Instead, she whispered, "Trevor thinks the same." My heart sank. Trevor. Her husband of less than 24 hours. Already shaping her into someone who no longer belonged to me. I sank into my chair, leaning back, letting out a long breath. "Is that why you said she was right last night?" I asked quietly. "Because Trevor thinks it? Marilyn thinks it? Is that all it takes now, Ariana? Their words? Their approval?" She looked up, her eyes glistening, but not with apology. With frustration. "Mom, you can't keep acting like a victim." "A victim?" The word sliced through me like a blade. "I didn't act like a victim," I whispered. "I was one." She didn't reply. Silence filled the room, thick, suffocating, cold. The kind that settles when 2 people realize they are no longer standing on the same ground. After a long moment, she rubbed her forehead and sighed. "Mom, you need to apologize to Marilyn." I blinked. Apologize? She wanted me to apologize to the woman who assaulted me. The woman who had been slowly pulling her away from me for months. The woman who wanted me removed from Ariana's life like an old stain. "Ariana," I said slowly, "what exactly do you want me to apologize for?" She felt disrespected. "That's not an answer," I said gently. She hesitated. Then she whispered something that nearly shattered me. "You're too emotional, Mom. You always have been. Marilyn thinks." I held up a hand. "Stop." She froze. "Don't speak her thoughts," I said quietly. "Speak yours." A long pause. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Because she didn't know where her thoughts ended and Marilyn's began. Finally, Ariana stood. Slowly. As if she had made a decision she wasn't sure she could live with. "Mom, I think we need space." Space. Another word that stabbed deep. "You're choosing them," I said softly. She looked pained. "No. I'm choosing peace." Peace. That's what she called it. I call it surrender. She reached for the doorknob, but before she opened it, she looked back at me. Her eyes softened for a moment. Just a flicker. A memory of a girl who once loved me without hesitation. "Mom, please don't make this harder." And then she left. The door closed. The shop felt colder. The silence returned, heavier than before. I sat there for a long time, letting the reality settle. My daughter, my only daughter, had walked away from me. Not because of anything I had done, but because she found a new world where I didn't fit. A world with marble floors, private clubs, and people who pretended kindness while sharpening knives behind their backs. A world where mothers like me were an embarrassment. I knew then that this wasn't about one night. This wasn't about soup. This wasn't even about Marilyn. This was about losing Ariana. Piece by piece. Step by step. Until she was no longer mine. Around midnight, I went upstairs to my small living room. I made tea with shaky hands. I sat on the sofa Marcus and I bought when Ariana was 3. And I let myself think about everything that led us here. The first time Marilyn dismissed my work as cute. The first time Trevor laughed at my car. The way Ariana began speaking with a tone that wasn't hers. The way she started hiding things. The way she started apologizing for me when her new friends were around. The way she smiled differently. The way she looked at me differently. And now the way she walked away. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour. Maybe 3. But eventually I reached for my phone. I opened my message thread. There it was. Ari. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing. When will it happen? He responded almost instantly. Soon. Make no contact with Ariana. Don't warn her. I let out a breath. Not relief. Not fear. Something in between. Because I didn't know what Richard planned. I didn't know how far he would go. I didn't know what the consequences would be. But I knew one thing. Whatever Marilyn had been doing behind closed doors, whatever secrets the Elwood family thought they buried, Richard knew them all. And he was done staying silent. I set the phone down. I walked to my window. I looked out at the quiet street below, the street where Ariana took her first steps, where she learned to ride a bike, where she ran into my arms after every bad day. I pressed my palm to the glass. Marcus, I whispered into the darkness. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I can't lose her. I can't let them destroy her, or me. I closed my eyes. I just want my daughter back. But wanting doesn't change reality. And the reality was this. A storm was coming. One Marilyn couldn't stop. One Ariana couldn't understand. One Trevor couldn't manipulate. And I, Evelyn Ward, a seamstress with nothing but thread and pain, had just set it in motion. I didn't know it then. But the events that followed would destroy everything and rebuild me into someone I never imagined I could become. This was only the first crack. The days after Ariana visited my shop passed in a blur of quiet routines and louder thoughts. I stitched dresses, hemmed skirts, pressed seams, but everything felt mechanical, like my hands were moving on their own while my mind drifted somewhere far away. Somewhere filled with questions I didn't dare say out loud. I kept replaying our conversation. Every word. Every pause. Every moment she looked at my shop like it was something small. Something beneath her new life. I couldn't sleep that night or the night after. I sat up with a cup of tea, letting it grow cold on my knee as I tried to understand the girl she had become. I didn't realize how deeply Marilyn's shadow stretched until I finally saw how much of Ariana it touched. On the 4th morning after the wedding, my phone rang. Not with a call, but with another short message from Richard. We meet today. 3 p.m. My office. Alone. My heart stalled for a second. Richard Elwood was a man no one refused, not even his own family. Especially not his own family. I texted back only one word. Okay. I didn't know what he wanted to talk about. I didn't know what he planned. But I knew this. Whatever Marilyn had been building, whatever lies she had woven between Ariana and me, Richard had been watching. And he didn't watch things for long. I left my house early. I wore a clean, simple dress. My hands trembled a little as I locked the shop. I drove across town toward Buckhead, the district where the Elwoods lived like royalty in glass towers and marble estates. Richard's office was in a sleek silver building overlooking the city. The kind of place where the lobby smelled like imported flowers and the floors were polished enough to see your reflection. Wealth seemed to hum in the air itself. I felt like I didn't belong there. But I walked in anyway. The receptionist stood the moment she saw me. She didn't ask my name. She didn't ask who I was meeting. She just nodded and said, "Mr. Elwood is expecting you," as if he had instructed the entire building to treat me like someone important. That alone unsettled me. She guided me to an elevator that ascended silently to the top floor. When the doors opened, the hallway was lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Atlanta glittered below like a jewel, beautiful and distant. At the end of the hall, a pair of dark wooden doors stood open. I stepped inside. Richard Elwood sat behind his desk, an enormous slab of black marble, reading a document with small neat glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. He looked older than at the wedding rehearsal, but sharper too. His presence filled the room in a way his son and grandson never could. He didn't stand. He didn't smile. He simply lowered the paper and studied me. Evelyn Ward. His voice was deep, gravelly, steady. I swallowed. Thank you for seeing me. You called me, he said calmly. You asked for this. I nodded. I did. He motioned toward the chair in front of his desk. I sat. My palms felt damp, but I kept them folded in my lap. For a long moment he didn't speak. He just watched me with the stillness of a man who had seen too much in his life to rush anything. Finally he said, "Tell me what happened at the wedding." The question startled me. You don't know. He leaned back. I know what Marilyn told the board, what she told my son, what she told society. But I want to hear what actually happened. From you. I took a breath. I didn't want to relive that humiliation. But I forced myself to meet his eyes. She threw hot soup in my face. He didn't react. Not with shock. Not with disbelief. Just a slow, deep inhale. And your daughter? I felt my chest tighten. She said Marilyn was right. He nodded once, as if confirming something he already suspected. And Trevor? He didn't say a word. Richard closed his eyes briefly, pinching the bridge of his nose. For a moment I saw something human there. Something tired. Something disappointed. When he opened his eyes again, they were sharper than before. The Elwood family, he said, has a sickness. I stared at him. A sickness, he repeated, that my father gave to my mother, and that my mother passed to me. I tried to break it. I failed. My son embraced it. Marilyn nurtured it. And Trevor? He exhaled quietly. Trevor carries it without even questioning it. I didn't understand. What sickness? His jaw tightened. Cruelty disguised as class. The word struck me, because they were true. I had felt it every time Marilyn smiled at me like I was something she stepped in. Every time Trevor dismissed me with polite indifference. Every time Ariana absorbed their ways like a sponge soaking poison. I've watched that woman, Richard said quietly. I watched how she raised Trevor. I watched how she plays with people. Pulling strings, controlling, destroying anyone she believes stands beneath her. I warned Reginald not to marry her. He didn't listen. He paused. My mistake was letting her stay. My heart pounded. I didn't know where he was going with this. Richard leaned forward slightly. What Marilyn did to you was not impulsive. It was planned. My blood turned cold. Planned how? He opened a drawer and pulled out a thin file. With 2 fingers he slid it across the desk toward me. Read. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a printed message thread. Dozens of messages. All from Marilyn. All sent to someone named Karen Michaels. Wedding planner. Socialite. One of Marilyn's closest friends. Messages that said things like, Evelyn will embarrass herself. I just need the right moment. She needs to be reminded of her place. I want everyone to see what Trevor had to overcome marrying into that class. And the one that made my throat tighten. If I humiliate her publicly, Ariana will distance herself for good. I felt the world tilt. My breath caught. My hands trembled harder. She had planned it. The soup wasn't an accident. It wasn't heat of the moment anger. It was a calculated humiliation. A weapon. A strategy to cut Ariana from me. She wanted to separate you, Richard said softly, almost regretfully. She's been grooming Ariana for months. Isolation is Marilyn's favorite tool. My eyes burned, but I didn't let tears fall. I wouldn't give Marilyn that power, not even in her absence. Why are you showing me this? I whispered. Richard's voice softened in a way I never expected. Because I failed my own wife. And I refused to sit by and let Marilyn destroy another woman while my family watches in silence. He stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Evelyn, your daughter is in danger. My heart skipped. What? How? He didn't turn around. Marilyn doesn't love people. She possesses them. She molds them. And once she shapes them into what she wants, she owns them. And if they resist... He paused. She breaks them. A cold shiver ran up my spine. Trevor is already lost, he said. She raised him to be her mirror. But Ariana still has something left inside her that Marilyn hasn't destroyed yet. That's why Marilyn acted so quickly at the wedding. She wanted to sever your bond permanently. I swallowed hard. Can she do that? He turned, finally meeting my gaze. She already began. The truth hit me like a blow. The words. The way Ariana defended her. The way she asked me to apologize. The way she looked at my shop with embarrassment instead of love. Ariana was slipping away from me. Not because she wanted to, but because Marilyn wanted her to. My voice trembled. What do I do? Richard walked back to his desk and sat slowly. You stand your ground. You don't chase her. You don't apologize. You don't beg. That is what Marilyn expects. Do not give her the satisfaction. My breath shook. But I'm losing her. No, he said. You're not. Not yet. He folded his hands on the desk. I will help you. But understand something clearly. Once this begins, it cannot be undone. Fear prickled through me. What do you mean? The consequence, he said quietly, will change Ariana's life, Trevor's life, and Marilyn's life forever. And you will be at the center of it. What exactly are you planning? He didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, he asked, Evelyn, do you trust me? I hesitated. Only for a breath. I trust you more, I whispered, than the people who hurt me. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. Then listen carefully, he said. I'm going to expose the truth. All of it. And when I do, Ariana will face a choice. The hardest choice of her life. And whatever she chooses will show you who she truly is. My heart pounded. And if she chooses them? Richard gave a faint, sad smile. Then you let her go. The words pierced me. Prepare yourself, he said. When I pull this thread, the entire fabric of the Elwood family will unravel. I looked down at my hands, at the calluses, the small cuts, the faint pink burn from the soup. These hands built a life from nothing. These hands raised Ariana. These hands deserved respect, not humiliation. I lifted my chin. What do you need from me? Your silence, he said. Your patience. And your courage. I nodded. He picked up another file and placed it on top of the first. Take this. Read it at home. It's the beginning. What is it? I asked. He hesitated. Just for a second. Proof, he said. Of what Trevor and Marilyn have been hiding. My breath caught. What have they been hiding? Richard looked at me with an expression I will never forget. Pity mixed with warning. You'll understand soon, he said. But Evelyn, prepare yourself. The truth you're about to learn is heavy. I swallowed hard. I'm ready. He studied me, then nodded. You are stronger than she realizes, he whispered. That will be her downfall. I stood, picked up the files. My legs felt stiff. My chest felt tight. But I didn't let it show. As I reached the door, he said one last thing. Remember this, Evelyn. The moment you walked away from the wedding without crying, Marilyn knew she picked the wrong woman to humiliate. I paused. She wanted to break you, he said. But all she did was wake you. His words lingered long after I left the office. I drove home gripping those files like they were the keys to something dangerous. Something life-changing. Something irreversible. When I reached my apartment, I locked the door, sat at my kitchen table, and opened the second file. And the moment my eyes hit the first page, my world cracked. Completely. Utterly. Irreversibly. And for the first time, I understood exactly why Richard Elwood had stepped out of the shadows. Everything I thought I knew about Trevor, everything Ariana believed, everything Marilyn built, was a lie. A devastating, poisonous lie. The first page of the file trembled slightly in my hands. Not because the paper was thin, but because my fingers were shaking. I forced myself to steady my breath before reading. But the more I tried to brace myself, the less prepared I felt. At the top of the first document, bold and cold, were the words. Financial investigation, Trevor Elwood. Confidential. I blinked. I read it again. Financial investigation. Trevor. Investigated? I moved to the second page. My eyes darted across the lines. Words leapt out like small explosions. Unauthorized transfers. Misuse of family accounts. Fabricated investment proposals. Forgery of Reginald Elwood's signature. My heartbeat quickened. I read faster. Trevor had been siphoning money. From his own family. From the company accounts. From trusts that didn't belong to him. Millions. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Millions. A chill crawled up my spine, slow and suffocating. But the next line, that one nearly stopped my breath. Project Blossom beneficiary listed. Ariana Ward. My daughter's name. Typed in smooth black ink. Like she was part of a crime she couldn't even comprehend. The world tilted. I gripped the table. My stomach tightened. I turned the page with trembling hands. Below, highlighted in yellow. Funds transferred to Ariana Ward under the guise of investment support. She remains unaware the money originates from unauthorized accounts. I pressed a hand over my mouth. Ariana unaware? Misled? Used? My mind tried to process it, but the truth kept hitting me in waves. Trevor was grooming her. Financially. Legally. Emotionally. He had been setting her up from the beginning, placing her name on things that could destroy her if discovered, binding her to him not just through love or marriage but through liability. It wasn't romance. It was entrapment. I closed my eyes. For a moment all I could hear was my own breath. Ragged, uneven, fragile. But the file wasn't done. I turned another page. And what I saw next almost broke me. Screenshots of messages between Marilyn and Trevor. Cold. Calculated. Cruel. Trevor. She's naive, Mom. She'll sign anything I put in front of her. Marilyn. Good. Make sure she's tied to it financially before the wedding. Then she won't leave. Trevor. Ariana is emotional. She's easy to steer. Marilyn. Steer her away from her mother. That woman is a problem. Problem. Me. I gripped the edge of the table so tightly my knuckles went white. My chest ached. My throat burned. Every memory of Trevor smiling at Ariana suddenly twisted into something sick. Every polite nod he gave me now felt like mockery. Every moment Ariana defended him made my stomach twist. He never saw her as a wife. He saw her as insurance. Collateral. A shield for his crimes. And when Marilyn insulted me, when she humiliated me, it wasn't just cruelty. It was strategy. If Ariana drifted from me, she would cling harder to Trevor. If I became the problem, Marilyn became the solution. My hand shook so violently I had to set the file down. I stared at it through a haze of disbelief. Then came the next set of papers. Bank documents. Transfer histories. Signatures forged in Trevor's handwriting. And small notes written in Richard's pen at the margins. She doesn't know. He's using her. Protect her. The final blow, the page that shattered something deep inside me, was a printed transcript of a conversation recorded between Marilyn and Karen. The same planner from earlier. Karen. What if Ariana finds out what Trevor is doing? Marilyn. She won't. She's too desperate for this new life. Karen. And if her mother interferes? Marilyn. I'll remove her. Karen. How? Marilyn's answer froze me. Easy. Shame her. Make Ariana embarrassed of where she comes from. Break the bond. A girl without a mother is defenseless. My breath hitched. A girl without a mother. That was her plan all along. Not to kill me. Not to fight me. Not to compete. To erase me. Erase the history I built. Erase the life I gave Ariana. Erase the love that threatened her control. I pressed my hand against my chest as the realization settled like a hard stone. Ariana didn't drift away. She was pushed. Guided. Manipulated. Brainwashed piece by piece. And when Ariana defended Marilyn at the wedding, when she told me, "She's right, Mom," she was standing exactly where Marilyn had forced her to stand. Tears blurred my vision for the first time since the wedding. Not because of the humiliation. Not because of the burns. But because my daughter was being destroyed without ever seeing the blade. I wiped my face roughly and read the final sheet. A letter. Not typed. Handwritten. In Richard's stern, unpolished script. Evelyn, you called me for help. Now you have the truth. But truth alone is useless. You must decide whether you want justice, mercy, or silence. This family destroys what it cannot control. I need your strength for what comes next. Ari. I sat back, the letter trembling between my fingers. What comes next? The words echoed in my mind. A storm was building. A storm large enough to tear the Elwood facade apart. A storm Richard was ready to unleash. But for it to work, I had to be part of it. I had to stand in the center. I closed the file slowly, gently, as if it contained the ashes of something sacred. Then I heard it. A soft knock on my front door. My heart stilled. I wasn't expecting anyone. And after reading everything I just read, fear prickled suddenly along my spine. I stood, walked to the door, and hesitated before opening it. When I did, I found Ariana standing there. My daughter. Her eyes swollen, her cheeks flushed like she had been crying. She wasn't in designer clothes. She wasn't wearing Marilyn's lipstick shade. She looked small. Young. Lost. Mom, she whispered, her voice shaking. Can I come in? I stepped back in shock, letting her inside. She moved into the living room, her fingers trembling as she held herself tightly. I watched her silently. I didn't know if she was here because she regretted what she said, or because she needed something, or worse, because Marilyn sent her. Ariana sat on the sofa and buried her face in her hands. Mom, she choked out. Everything is falling apart. My heart pulled forward instinctively, but I held myself still. Right now I couldn't move blindly. Not after what I read. What happened? I asked softly. She looked up. Her mascara smudged. Her breathing shaky. Trevor, she whispered. Something's wrong with him. He's been acting strange. He won't tell me anything. He keeps locking his phone. He's always meeting with his mother in secret. And today, she swallowed hard. Today I overheard them arguing. And I heard Trevor say my name in a way that scared me. My stomach twisted. Scared you how? I asked. She wiped her tears with shaky fingers. He said, she'll take the fall before I do. My breath hitched. The fall. The punishment. The scapegoat. Ariana. My baby. My blood. My child. Everything Richard warned me about, everything in that file, was already unfolding. Ariana sobbed harder. Mom, I don't understand what's happening. I feel like I'm losing myself. Trevor is different. Marilyn is always watching me. And I feel like, she broke down into tears. I feel like they're using me. I closed my eyes briefly. This was the moment Richard said would come. When Ariana would face the truth, or refuse to see it. I sat beside her. Slowly, carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. Ariana, I said quietly, there are things you need to know. She looked up with red, swollen eyes. What things? My throat tightened. Should I tell her everything now? Should I wait for Richard's plan? Should I let the storm happen first? Then she reached for my hand. The same small hand that once clung to me when she learned to walk. Mom, she whispered. Please tell me the truth. And I knew. The storm had already begun. I opened the file. I placed it gently on her lap. Her eyes widened as she looked down at the pages. Her shaky fingers hovered over the documents. What is this? I swallowed. The truth, I whispered. Everything they've been hiding from you. She stared at the folder, terrified. But before she opened it, she whispered something that broke me and stitched me back together at the same time. Mom, I'm sorry for what I said at the wedding. I don't know why I said it. I was scared. I was overwhelmed. And Marilyn. Her voice cracked. She kept telling me you were ruining my future. I felt my heart crack open, raw and aching. Do you believe that? I whispered. Ariana shook her head fiercely as tears streamed down her face. No, I don't. But she made me feel like choosing you meant losing everything else. I cupped her face gently. You'll never lose me, I whispered. Never. But you need to see what they've been doing. You need to see the truth. Her breath trembled. She opened the file. And as she read, the color drained from her face. Shock turned to disbelief. Disbelief turned to anger. Anger turned to fear. By the time she reached the final page, she was shaking. Mom, she whispered. What have they done? I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly for the first time in months. She sobbed against my shoulder. Her body trembled with betrayal and heartbreak. They were going to destroy me, she cried. They were going to ruin my life. I stroked her hair gently. I won't let that happen. Her voice was small, fragile, terrified. What do we do now? I closed my eyes. Richard's words echoed in my mind. Once this begins, it cannot be undone. I wiped Ariana's tears and held her face in my hands. We stand together, I whispered. We stand stronger than Marilyn ever expected. And we let the truth destroy the lies. Ariana nodded weakly, her voice barely a breath. Mom, please don't leave me. I held her tight. My love. I never left. But in my heart, I knew this was only the beginning. Because once Marilyn discovered Ariana knew the truth, she would come for us both. And the war she started at the wedding was about to explode. Ariana stayed the night with me. Not because she planned to, not because we talked about it, but because when she finished reading every page in that file, she couldn't bring herself to go back to that house, that marriage, that world. She fell asleep on the couch in my living room, curled up beneath the quilt I made during the summer after Marcus died. She used to sleep under that same quilt when thunderstorms frightened her as a child. And now, all these years later, she rested there again. Not from thunder, but from the storm her husband and his mother created. I sat beside her on the floor, my back against the sofa, watching her breathe. Her face was blotchy from tears, her lashes still wet. She looked young again, like the Ariana who used to fall asleep in my lap after playing too hard at school. The girl whose dreams I protected like delicate silk. For the first time in months, I didn't see Marilyn's influence on her face. Just my daughter. My girl. But my heart wasn't light. It was heavy, because I knew what awaited us when morning came. Marilyn wouldn't stay quiet. Trevor wouldn't remain calm. They would search. They would call. They would panic. Because Ariana had disappeared from their hands. And people like them didn't lose control gracefully. Around 4 in the morning, Ariana stirred. Her eyes fluttered open slowly, confusion flickering across her face before reality crashed back into her. "Mom, what time is it?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. She didn't speak. She leaned forward, resting her forehead on her knees, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her breathing trembled. I gently placed a hand on her back. "I don't know what to do," she whispered into her legs. "I don't know who to trust. I don't know where I'm supposed to go." "You're home," I said quietly. "That's enough for now." She lifted her head, her eyes red. "Mom, I'm so sorry. For everything. I didn't see any of this. I didn't want to see it." "You trusted them," I said. "You loved him. That's not a sin. It's a risk every heart takes." She swallowed hard. "I can't believe Trevor would do that to me. I can't believe he put my name on those accounts." My voice softened. "He didn't love you the way you thought. But that doesn't make your love less real." She nodded slowly, looking down at her hands. "I want to confront them." "No," I said instantly. "You cannot confront them alone." "Why not?" "Because Marilyn will twist your words," I said. "Trevor will lie. And Reginald will protect the family name before he protects his son." She stared at me, fear creeping back into her eyes. "Then what do we do?" I hesitated. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to fix everything with my own hands. But I had already set something bigger in motion the moment I called Richard. And now we had to trust him. "We let Richard handle it," I said. Ariana blinked. "Richard? You mean Trevor's grandfather?" I nodded. She looked confused, almost startled. "Why would he help us?" I looked down, my voice quiet. "Because he's the only one who won't lie to protect Marilyn. And because he knows what she's capable of. He knows how she destroys the people she can't control." Ariana hugged her arms around herself again. "What if he doesn't care about me?" "He does," I said firmly. "More than you realize. And he's angry. That's why he's dangerous to them. A man with nothing to prove is unstoppable. But a man with something to protect." I paused. "Even Marilyn fears him." Ariana stared at me for a long moment before nodding weakly. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the coffee table. She jumped. We both looked at the screen. 34 missed calls, Trevor. 14 missed calls, Marilyn. 3 messages, Reginald. 2 voicemails, unknown. I felt my stomach twist. Ariana's hand shook. "Oh God. Mom, they're going to come here." I gently took the phone from her trembling fingers. "Not today. Not like this." The phone buzzed again. Another call. Trevor's name flashing with intensity that felt threatening. Ariana flinched at the vibration. I silenced the phone and set it face down. "Do you want to hear his messages?" I asked quietly. "No," she whispered. "I'm scared." I nodded. "You should be. Fear is the body's way of telling us the truth." She looked up at me, tears forming again. "Mom, what if I ruined everything? What if leaving the house made it worse?" "You didn't ruin anything," I said. "You saved yourself." She wiped her eyes. "I don't feel saved." "Not yet," I whispered. "But you will." We sat in the quiet living room until the first gray light of dawn crept through the blinds. Ariana leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. My arm wrapped around her the way it used to when she was little. And in that moment, just for that moment, I felt like I had my daughter back. But peace never lasts in stories like this. Around 7 in the morning, there was a loud knock on the door. Ariana stiffened immediately. "Mom," she whispered, voice trembling. "That's them. I know it." Another knock. Harder. More impatient. I felt my heart climb into my throat. I stood slowly and motioned for Ariana to stay behind the sofa. The knock came again. I approached the door quietly and looked through the peephole. And my breath caught in my chest. Not Trevor. Not Marilyn. Not Reginald. It was Richard. Standing tall, holding a polished wooden cane, wearing a black overcoat. His expression sharp, unreadable. I opened the door quickly, relief washing over me like warm rain. "Mr. Elwood." He lifted a hand. "Richard." I nodded. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His eyes scanned the living room, landing on Ariana. She stood slowly, nervously, tears still drying on her cheeks. "Hello, Ariana," he said, his voice low but steady. She swallowed. "Sir." "Sit," he said. Not harshly, not gently, just firmly. She sat. He walked to the dining table and placed a slim metal briefcase on it. The click of the locks echoed through the room. When he opened it, a stack of documents lay inside, thicker, heavier, more damning than anything I had seen last night. Ariana stared at them with a mixture of fear and dread. Richard turned to her. "They know you're gone," he said plainly. They've already called the police pretending they're concerned. They filed a missing person request and said you left in a distressed state. They're trying to paint you as unstable. Ariana covered her mouth. I felt my blood run cold. Richard continued. Trevor's first call was to the family lawyer. Marilyn's first call was to a crisis PR firm. Reginald's first call was to their political board contact. None of them called because they were worried about your safety. They called because they were worried about their reputations. Ariana's eyes filled with tears. He didn't soften. They want to find you before the truth comes out. Because if the truth comes out, Trevor goes to prison. And Marilyn loses everything she has spent 20 years building. I stepped closer to Ariana and placed a hand on her shoulder. Richard leaned against his cane. What you do next will decide the rest of your life. Ariana whispered. I don't want to go back. He nodded. Then you won't. She stared at him. But what do you want from me? Richard lowered himself into the chair beside her. A slow, controlled movement. What I want, he said, is to end Marilyn's reign over this family. His voice darkened. And I want Trevor to face the consequences of the man he has chosen to become. Ariana trembled. And me. He looked at her long and hard. I want to protect you from becoming them. She broke down again, shoulders shaking. I knelt beside her. Richard placed a document in front of her. A subpoena. A notice of investigation. A complete breakdown of Trevor's fraudulent accounts. Ariana stared at the papers as if they were weapons. Richard's voice softened just barely. Child, listen to me carefully. You are not responsible for Trevor's sins. You were groomed, manipulated, used, and now you have a choice. He leaned closer. You can stay silent and let them pull you down with them, or you can stand with the truth and free yourself. Ariana looked at me through tears. Mom, what do I do? My voice didn't shake. You choose the truth. She closed her eyes tightly. Richard stood and walked toward the door. You have 24 hours, he said. By then, Trevor and Marilyn will either come here themselves, or they'll send someone else. Ariana's breath hitched. Someone else. A lawyer. A fixer. Maybe someone worse. He paused. But I'll be ready. He looked at me then, his eyes steady. Evelyn. Protect her. She will be the one they target next. I nodded once. He opened the door but paused before stepping out. And one more thing, he said quietly. We both looked at him. When the truth hits them, they will not fight with logic. They will fight with cruelty. That is all they know. Then he left. The moment the door shut, Ariana collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Mom, she cried, voice breaking. I can't go back there. I can't face them. I held her tightly, whispering into her hair. You won't be alone again. Not ever. But even as I held her, even as she trembled in my arms, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst, the ugliest, the most devastating part of this war was still to come. And Marilyn Elwood would not go down quietly. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. Ariana lay curled under the quilt, breathing softly, but I sat awake beside her like a guard who couldn't blink, not because I feared what was outside, but because I feared what she would feel when morning came. I watched the sky darken, then pale, then glow, and with every hour that passed, I felt something changing inside me. I wasn't the same woman Marilyn tried to humiliate at that wedding. Pain had carved something sharper inside me, something clearer, something unbreakable. At 9 a.m., Ariana sat up slowly, wiping her eyes. The exhaustion on her face made her look younger and older at the same time. She glanced at me. Mom, what's going to happen today? I placed a hand on her shoulder. Truth. More truth than they can hide from. She swallowed hard. I'm scared. I know, I whispered. I am too. Before she could respond, her phone, still silenced, began vibrating violently against the table. I grabbed it. The caller ID flashed. Attorney Morris Spencer, Elwood Family Legal Counsel. Ariana's face drained of color. I silenced the call. Don't answer that. Another vibration. This time a text. Urgent. You are in legal danger. Contact immediately. Ariana covered her mouth. Mom. Oh God. They're trying to frame me already. I grabbed her face gently. Look at me. Listen carefully. You are not alone. You will not go down with them. You will not sign anything. You will not speak to them. Not one single word. She nodded rapidly, hands trembling. A sharp knock thundered against the door. Ariana flinched. Mom! Stay behind me, I whispered. I approached slowly, my pulse pounding, and looked through the peephole. A man in a gray suit. Expensive. Expression blank. a black briefcase in hand. Another knock. "Ms. Ward," he said smoothly. "I'm here on behalf of the Elwood family. It's urgent." Marilyn had sent a fixer. I didn't open the door. "Leave," I said firmly. "Ms. Ward, I need to speak to Ariana. There are legal concerns." I repeated louder. "Leave." He paused. His tone sharpened. "If Ariana doesn't comply, law enforcement will." Footsteps approached from the hallway. Heavy, slow, authoritative. The fixer turned confused, right as Richard Elwood came into view. His cane tapped once on the floor. His eyes hardened. "What exactly are you doing at the Ward residence?" he asked icily. The fixer froze. Mr. Elwood, sir." Richard stepped closer. "Did my son send you?" "And no, sir," Mrs. Elwood asked. Richard didn't let him finish. He spoke in a low, deadly calm voice. "You leave this building. Now. And if you contact Ariana Ward again without my express permission, I will personally destroy your firm." The fixer backed away so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. Within seconds he was gone. Richard turned toward my door. "It begins today," he said. "And it will not be quiet." I opened the door. Ariana rushed to him instinctively. "Grandpa Richard," she whispered, voice cracking. He placed a hand on her head, almost gently. "I'm sorry, child. I should have protected you sooner." Ariana broke into sobs. Richard let her cry only for a moment before pulling away. "We don't have time. Both of you, gather what you need and come with me. The war has started." We followed him down the stairs. Ariana clutched my arm, her breathing uneven. I held her close as we reached the street where Richard's black sedan waited. Inside, the car was silent except for Ariana's trembling breaths. "Where are we going?" she whispered. Richard answered without looking at us. "To the Elwood estate." She stiffened. "Why?" "Because," Richard said, "I am taking back what belongs to me. And you, Ariana, are the key." Ariana's voice cracked. "I don't want to see Trevor." "You will," he said. "And when you do, you'll understand exactly who you married." The rest of the drive felt like hours. The Elwood mansion rose ahead, massive gates, manicured lawns, marble pillars, guards that looked like statues. As soon as we stepped out of the car, a guard rushed forward. "Sir, Mr. Elwood, your family is in a meeting." "What a coincidence," Richard murmured. "So am I." He pushed past the guard. We followed. Inside, voices filled the hallway, sharp, frantic. We entered the main lounge. Trevor stood there, pacing, hair disheveled, face flushed with anger. Marilyn sat on the edge of the white leather sofa, trembling with fury. Reginald stood near the window, on the phone with someone important enough to ignore the chaos. The moment they saw Ariana behind me, everything exploded. Trevor rushed forward. "Ariana, where the hell have you been? Why didn't you answer your phone? I thought something happened to you." Ariana stepped back. "Don't touch me." He froze. Marilyn stood slowly. Her voice was ice. "Evelyn, you are making a mistake by involving yourself. Step aside." I didn't move. Richard spoke before I could. "No, Marilyn. The only mistake here is that you believed you could hide this." Marilyn's eyes widened. "Hide what? I don't know what lies Evelyn told you." Richard took a file from his coat, the same file he gave me. He threw it on the marble coffee table. It slapped loudly. "Explain that," he said. Marilyn's face drained. Trevor stepped forward. "That's none of your business." "It becomes my business," Richard said, "when my grandson commits federal crimes." Trevor staggered. What? "That's forgery," Richard continued. "Fraud. Embezzlement. Identity theft. And you dragged Ariana into it." Marilyn snapped. "She agreed to those accounts." "No," Ariana said sharply. "I didn't." Trevor turned to her. "Ariana, listen to me. They're twisting it. Just trust me, we did it for us. For our life." "No, Trevor," she whispered. "You did it for yourself." Marilyn stepped between them. "You ungrateful little girl. After everything we offered." Ariana flinched. I stepped forward. "Don't you talk to her like that." Marilyn turned to me, eyes glowing with hatred. You did this. You poisoned her against us." "I didn't need to," I said quietly. "Your own actions did that." Richard tapped his cane on the marble floor. "Trevor," he said calmly, "do you deny these documents?" Trevor's eyes darted wildly. Grandpa, listen, I was planning to fix it." Richard's voice dropped dangerously low. "You were planning to use Ariana as a scapegoat." Trevor went pale. Marilyn snapped. "Stop this right now." Richard, you have no authority to question him. You're right, he said. He turned slightly, and for the first time we noticed 3 men standing in the hallway. Police officers. Marilyn's face twisted. No. Richard nodded. Yes. Trevor's eyes widened in horror. Grandpa, no. The officers stepped forward. Trevor Elwood? You are under arrest for financial fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. Everything became chaos. Trevor lunged at Ariana. Ariana, tell them you signed with me. Tell them. The officers restrained him. Ariana stumbled back in shock. Marilyn screamed, lunging toward the officers. Don't you touch him. He is an Elwood. He is above your pathetic. Richard raised his voice for the first time. Marilyn, sit down. The room froze. Even Marilyn obeyed. Trevor was cuffed, hands shaking violently. Ariana watched in stunned silence as he was pulled toward the door. He reached out desperately. Ari, please just tell them. Tell them anything. I did this for us. Ariana whispered. You destroyed us. He was dragged away, screaming her name. Marilyn collapsed onto the sofa, shaking. Reginald ended his call, turning slowly. His eyes filled with fury at his father. How could you? He roared. You ruined us. Richard stared at him. No, Reginald. You ruined yourself when you let your wife rot the foundation of this family. Marilyn stood, pointing at me with a trembling finger. This is her fault. Her and her pathetic daughter. That's enough, Richard snapped. You were behind every piece of this. Marilyn's voice cracked. I was protecting our name. You were destroying it, Richard said. Silence filled the room. Marilyn shook. You can't blame me for Trevor's mistakes. Oh, but I can, Richard said softly. Because he became exactly the man you raised him to be. She stared at him, horror spreading across her face. For the first time, Marilyn Elwood looked afraid. Richard turned to Ariana. You're coming with me. Ariana didn't hesitate. She walked toward him. But Marilyn lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. You're my daughter-in-law. No, Ariana said quietly. I'm not. She pulled her hand away. Marilyn collapsed to her knees. Please, she whispered. Don't leave us. Don't destroy us. Don't. Ariana stepped back behind me. I felt her small hand slip into mine. Richard straightened his coat. It's over, he said. No. Marilyn screamed, voice breaking. It's not over. You can't take everything away. But he already had. We walked out together. Ariana between us, leaving Marilyn behind, collapsing into hysterical sobs on the marble floor. For the first time in her life, she couldn't control anyone. And the Elwood Empire, the one she built on lies, manipulation, and cruelty, was cracking beneath her knees. We left the mansion. But the storm wasn't done. The real collapse hadn't even begun. Richard didn't take us back to my house. He took us somewhere safer, somewhere Marilyn wouldn't dare approach. His own private estate. Far from the Elwood mansion. Far from the chaos. Far from the cameras already gathering outside their gates. By the time we reached his home, news alerts had already begun. Elwood heir arrested for fraud. Financial scandal shakes Atlanta elite. Insider. Family feud led to investigation. Ariana read the headlines with trembling hands. Mom, this is my fault. No, I whispered, pulling her close. This is theirs. And for the next few hours everything spiraled deeper. Trevor was denied bail. Reginald went into hiding. Marilyn was spotted screaming at reporters outside the mansion. Makeup smeared, hair tangled. By evening, the mansion was swarmed with police and investigators. But the real breaking point came at night. Ariana was sitting in Richard's study, staring at a cup of untouched tea. I sat beside her. Richard stood near the windows, hands behind his back. A knock echoed through the hall. A maid opened the door. Sir, it's your daughter-in-law. Marilyn. We froze. Richard nodded once. Send her in. Marilyn stormed inside, disheveled, wild-eyed, shaking. She looked nothing like the polished woman I knew. Her dress torn. Her mascara streaked. Her hair flat and lifeless. When she saw Ariana, something broke inside her. You ruined us, she screamed. Ariana flinched violently. I stepped between them instantly. Don't you come near my daughter. Marilyn pointed at me with trembling fury. This is your doing. You corrupted her. You made her turn against her own. Enough, Richard said sharply. She turned on him. You blamed me for everything. You always blamed me. But you raised Reginald to be spineless. Richard's voice remained calm. You built this mess. You let me, she spat. The room fell silent. For the first time, the truth surfaced between them. Marilyn's voice cracked. You never respected me. You never let me forget I wasn't born into this family. You never let me feel equal. And so, Richard said coldly, you chose to destroy anyone who made you feel inferior. Marilyn's eyes filled with tears, not sadness but rage. I protected this family. I held it together. And now you tear it apart for her? A seamstress? A no one. She pointed at me again, sobbing with hysteria. Do you know how humiliating it is to be brought down by a woman like her? I stepped forward. A woman like me? I repeated softly. Honest? Hardworking? Loyal? A mother who raised her child with love instead of control? Yet, I can see why I threaten you. Marilyn screamed and lunged at me. But Richard slammed his cane on the ground so hard the sound echoed like thunder. Enough. She froze mid-step. Richard pointed to the door. Get out. She shook violently. Don't do this, Richard. Don't you dare. Out. No. Out. Marilyn broke into sobs, collapsing to the floor. Please, she begged. I have no one. Don't leave me. Don't take everything from me. It was never yours, Richard said softly. Marilyn covered her face. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't just cruel. She was empty. Hollow. A shell built on fear and envy. Security escorted her out. Ariana watched, shaking. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. Mom, I don't hate her. I pulled her close. Not hating her doesn't mean forgiving her. Ariana nodded. I feel sorry for her. Richard turned. Compassion is a strength, he said. Not a weakness. We stayed at the estate for 2 days. And in those 2 days, Trevor confessed everything. Not out of remorse, but because he realized his mother couldn't save him. Reginald turned himself in after learning the company was collapsing under investigation. Marilyn suffered a complete breakdown and was admitted quietly to a private psychiatric facility. The Elwood name, the empire, the legacy, fell apart like wet paper, all while Ariana stayed by my side, holding my hand through each headline, each update, each shock. On the 3rd morning, she turned to me at breakfast. Mom. Yes, love. Can we go home? Those words healed something inside me I didn't even know was still bleeding. We returned to my small apartment. The place she once outgrew, dismissed, looked down on. She stepped inside slowly. Then she whispered, I've missed this place. And she hugged me. For a long, long time. Weeks passed. Trevor was sentenced. Reginald lost everything. Marilyn remained in treatment. Richard retired from public life, writing a quiet letter wishing Ariana peace. Ariana filed for divorce, and she began to rebuild. One morning she sat in my sewing shop again, on the same wooden stool she used to sit on while doing homework. She watched me stitch fabric for a client, smiling gently. Mom. Yes. I want to help. I looked up at her. She wasn't the same girl who once feared my life would embarrass her. She was stronger, softer, wiser. I handed her a piece of fabric, and she smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in years. That evening, as we closed the shop, Ariana stepped outside and watched the sunset. She whispered, Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. I hugged her gently. I could never give up on you. She rested her head on my shoulder. Do you think I'll ever trust anyone again? Yes, I said softly. But now you'll know the difference between love and control. She nodded. And for the first time since this nightmare began, we both felt free. As night settled outside the shop, I thought about everything. The soup thrown at my face, the humiliation, the lies, the betrayal, the files, the arrest, the collapse, the healing. And I realized something I never admitted before. Marilyn didn't break me. She revealed me. She sharpened me. She forced me to become a woman who no longer apologized for existing. And Ariana didn't lose her way. She found it. By walking through fire with me. This is my story. A mother's story. A story of loss, love, betrayal, truth. And the kind of strength only pain can teach. And now it is finished.